They're saying they believe the three-pointer has destroyed the game. Shaq's blaming Steph Curry and all these other guys.
Look at the NBA. Every team is running the same play. Every team switches 1 through 5. Every team is running the dribble handoff. Back in our day, you had plays. I saw it the other day. I actually got to save it on my phone. Portland went 4 for 42 from the three. If I was a fan, I would not want to watch that.
The NBA has a huge problem, and this problem has been brewing for quite some time. It's something that I would have never expected when I started my career, but as time went on and I made a second channel that pertains to the NFL, I started to see some stark differences between the NBA and the NFL. Now, I wanted to make something abundantly clear. This isn't a video saying one sport is better than the other, but there's no denying the fact that one sport currently is experiencing significantly more success than the other. And I don't think people understand how drastic the issue is, because this hasn't always been the case. The problem hasn't always been this drastic. And in this video, we're going to try to pinpoint what is going on with the NBA, why their ratings are so low, and I hope we could have a respectable conversation in the comment section down below about it. Before we get to the content, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to get the latest NBA news to your device. And now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. PrizePicks' new feature has been making us so much money. We've been having a lot of success on PrizePicks, and now they finally launched live squares, meaning that squares will update in real time on the app in the middle of a game. So if you see a player is being locked up on defense, you can take a lower square. Or if a player is on track for a generational game, you can take his higher square in the middle of the game. If you haven't signed up for PrizePicks, make sure you use my promo code microphone to get $50 when you make a $5 play to take advantage of this brand new feature. We've been dominating with our NBA and NFL picks, and I post them for free on my Instagram at TheFlightMike and Snapchat FlightMikeSnap. And thank you, PrizePicks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? If you go back 8 years ago, the 2016 NBA Finals that featured Steph Curry and the 73-win Golden State Warriors versus LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers that would go down 3-1 in the series, the average viewership per each of these NBA Finals matchups were about 20 million viewers per game. This peaked at 31 million views for Game 7 in one of the greatest NBA Finals matchups we've ever seen in NBA history. And the craziest part is the numbers weren't that far off from here. For 2015, the average was about 20 million viewers per game. In 2014, it was a little bit less, about 15 million viewers per game. In 2013, saw about the same, and it peaked at 26.32 million viewers for Game 7. In 2012, when the Miami Heat took on the OKC Thunder, you still had about 16 to 17 million viewers per game. Now, that's not to say that the NBA didn't have worse viewership in the early 2000s for less enticing matchups. When the Spurs took on the New Jersey Nets in 2003, there's about 9.8 million viewers per game. But if you go back to the Michael Jordan era in 1998 and what was the conclusion of The Last Dance, the NBA saw its greatest viewership in the finals to date. About 30 million viewers per each game, that peaked at 35.89 million viewers in Game 6 that saw Michael Jordan deliver his iconic step-back game-winning shot over Byron Russell. And if you take a look at the NBA Finals recently, the numbers haven't even come close. This all started in 2020 during the bubble, where the Los Angeles Lakers beat the Miami Heat, but this also got the fewest viewership throughout all games for the NBA Finals. And things didn't get that much better. When the Bucks took on the Phoenix Suns in 2021, there was only one game, the final game of the series, that saw over 10 million viewers. But whenever Steph Curry was in the NBA Finals, they saw a slight tick in viewership, going up to 14 million viewers for the final game. And over the past 2 years, you saw about 11 million viewers per game for the NBA Finals. And there's been a huge question as to why this is the case. As the NBA once reigned supreme in its potential, not only was it a sport that was adopted by America, but it's a sport that's been played on a global scale. And you can even see the results based off of the type of players that have been making it into the NBA recently. Nikola Jokic, for instance, is from Serbia. Luka Doncic Doncic is from Slovenia. Kristaps Porzingis is from Latvia. But yet things have gotten so bad that on Christmas Day, Charles Barkley had this to say about the state of the NBA.
Best ratings we've ever had. What a year we went on strike, Dan, and started on Christmas. I think we need to seriously consider starting at Christmas, because you get caught, because listen, you're wasting your time going up against the NFL and college football. They own the weekends now.
Fans have been speculating what is going on here, and there's some stuff that's fairly obvious that I think are major driving factors, and I think there are some things that are also minor driving factors. Minor driving factors could be the fact that the NBA has been more political as of the 2020 NBA season, primarily because the players demanded that the NBA be a little bit more political as a result of what happened to George Floyd. Obviously, when you go all in on one side of the political spectrum, there's a good chance that you alienate the other side. If you're way too democratic in your games, then the Republicans might get a little annoyed and won't want to support your product. When you contrast this with the NFL, for instance, there have been moments where they were left-leaning and very clearly on the more conservative side. If you were to take a poll of all the owners and what president that they probably voted for, it wouldn't be a shock to say most of them went with the conservative candidate. But at the same time, you didn't see any NFL owner or any NFL player do this.
In the words of the great Steph Curry, we can tell Donald Trump, night, night. Thank you.
Now, I do think this is a minor driving factor because I'm a lover of basketball and football, and although having politics shoved down my throat could be a little annoying, it isn't necessarily something that would completely alienate me, although I understand that there are some people that will be alienated by such a thing. I'm not saying one side is right and one side is wrong, but I will say that when I watch sports personally, I don't want to be reminded of the political climate at all whatsoever. I want to escape from that, if anything. And this is something that I personally thought is a minor driving factor, but obviously, I think out of all the reasons I'm going to list, it's the smallest factor that is contributing to the recent ratings decline for the NBA. But of course, this video would not be complete if we didn't discuss the actual on-court product of the game. Now, obviously, there's a huge problem with the volume of three-point shooting in today's game, and we're going to get to that in a sec, but something that isn't talked about nearly as much is how flopping has become so prevalent in the sport. I mean, even the face of the NBA is notorious for this. One of the biggest grievances that LeBron James's biggest haters have against him is the fact that he is very prone to flopping. But it doesn't just stop at LeBron James. James Harden, Chris Paul, Joel Embiid, Trae Young, all of the NBA's top players are notorious for flopping. And it just doesn't sit right with the viewer at home when you see a player trying to oversell contact just for the sake of committing a foul. I mean, even Victor Wembanyama has done it to perfection recently. Andre Drummond starts talking trash to Wemby. Wemby just falls down like he's an NBA 2K versus Drummond, and Drummond gets ejected from the game. And then the referees notice that they made a horrific mistake, and then they unejected Andre Drummond from the game. It's just not a good look for the NBA, which is supposed to be physical and gritty, but recently has become less physical and less gritty, which brings me to probably the biggest problem that I think the NBA has currently, and that's the fact that there's absolutely no reason to watch the earlier games. We're gonna get to the NBA Cup in just a sec because I have my grievances against that, but growing up as a young fan in the NBA, early on I had the opportunity to watch Kobe and Shaq on the Los Angeles Lakers, but it wasn't smooth sailing during that era for the Los Angeles Lakers. Kobe and Shaq were constantly in headlines for potentially not agreeing with one another, but at the same time they were experiencing unprecedented success. Eventually, Shaq would get traded to the Miami Heat, and whenever these two would face off against each other, it was absolutely magical. Shaq relished in the opportunity to create drama, and even when Kobe Bryant won his 5th championship, he said this:
"Just got one more to Shaq."
I remember one of my favorite moments in NBA history was when Shaq was clearly washed and was playing with the Boston Celtics. Kobe Bryant hits this and one over Shaq, and then he stares down Shaq as if to say, "Did I just do that to you?" But it wasn't only Kobe versus Shaq. What about when Kevin Durant did something absolutely unforgivable, joining a 73-win Golden State Warriors team, betraying the remarkable young core that the OKC Thunder built? Russell Westbrook was on a mission for revenge that entire entire season, and he would relish in the opportunity to insult Kevin Durant. Whether it was talking trash to him in actual games or wearing a cupcake shirt when he was on the way to the arena, everybody was on Russell Westbrook's side. And you can make an argument that this drama, this storyline catapulted Russell Westbrook to his first MVP, although he clearly deserved it after averaging a triple-double. And in today's NBA, you just don't see rivalries like this anymore. I mean, I think the last time I saw something that's even similar to this is when Donovan Mitchell and Ben Simmons had that Rookie of the Year race, and Donovan Mitchell would wear a shirt that defined what a rookie was. You did have the recent Ben Simmons drama with the Philadelphia 76ers, but honestly, that's so one-sided and so pathetic that it doesn't really matter. Hell, even when Paul George left the Los Angeles Clippers, Kawhi Leonard said this.
We had that conversation, and I was like, man, like, I got to do what's best. I mean, he understood. He like, man, go get your bag. Like, P, go get your bag. Like, you know, I can't even be mad at you.
There's just no drama in these games anymore. There's no meaningful games anymore. And that's very significant in the earlier part of the season when the NBA is going up against the NFL until early February and against the most meaningful MLB games in October. As a result, no one really cares about the earlier NBA games until they become more meaningful, and they're very dependent on trade drama in order to generate any type of interest at all whatsoever. But even that recently has been mitigated by the new collective bargaining agreement, which makes it really funny when LeBron James says stuff like this on Christmas Day.
I love the NFL, but Christmas is our day.
I'm sure you guys know the NBA has just experienced one of its most successful Christmas Day slates in a very long time, averaging 5.25 million viewers according to final Nielsen ratings. The NBA has recently been in a war with the NFL because the NFL used to never have Christmas Day games. But when you compare those numbers, which are some of the NBA's best, to the NFL blew the NBA out of water. I mean, averaging 24.2 million views across both of their games. The craziest part about this is the games weren't that good. I was flipping channels constantly. I mean, the Steelers versus the Chiefs was not that competitive at all, and the Ravens blew out the Texans 31-2. They weren't good games, yet people were more interested in tuning in to blowout games from the NFL as opposed to watching some marquee NBA matchups. And a huge reason with that has to do with the stars. In the NBA right now, there's a huge problem in regards to star power. Originally, we had Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan passed the torch off to Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant and Shaq made for great TV. Eventually, LeBron James, a once-in-a-generation type prospect, joined the NBA, and he lived up to the billing. LeBron also caused a lot of drama. He left his original team to make a big three with the Miami Heat, something that was unheard of. And he had rivalries with the San Antonio Spurs and eventually the Golden State Warriors, which was literally the antithesis of LeBron James. They were dominating teams with homegrown talent, and eventually they became NBA villains when they signed Kevin Durant. This was the type of drama and star power that carried the NBA until recently. LeBron James is 40 years old. Steph Curry has recently said something like this.
How much thought do you put into how much longer you want to play?
More than I probably have before. I think, you know, it's okay to accept and acknowledge that the end is near at whatever point, but only because it allows you to enjoy what's happening right now. But I think the more you talk about it, the more you acknowledge it, it levels up just the sense of urgency of the moment now.
And now the NBA is stuck trying to find its next generation of stars. And in terms of talent, some things are looking really good. I mean, Victor Wembanyama is an alien. Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic's game isn't necessarily the most athletic, but it's still remarkable to watch. But the player that was supposed to bring the most entertainment value to the NBA is without a doubt Zion Williamson. But Zion Williamson hasn't been able to do that so far, primarily because he's so unmotivated and so lazy and so undisciplined that he'd rather shove food down his mouth than try to get at a healthy playing weight so he could lead the New Orleans Pelicans to an NBA championship, which, by the way, through the sample size that we've seen of Zion when he's fully healthy, he's clearly capable of doing it. The Pelicans even built a remarkable team around him, but he's only played 190 games in 5 years so far. And now the Pelicans seem open to trading him, and I can't necessarily blame them. So as you can see, the NBA NBA has a multi-layered problem because when you compare the NBA to, say, the NFL has had no problem developing brand new stars. The face of the NFL also extended his career. Tom Brady played until the age of 45, but in 2017, Patrick Mahomes came into the league. In 2018, he set the league on fire, but in 2018, we got other talents like Lamar Jackson. Josh Allen entered the league during that time as well. And each and every year, it seems like a brand new superstar enters the NFL that captivates us. The player movement is exciting and volatile, and just because you sign a marquee free agent doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work out, but sometimes you get surprised. Saquon Barkley signed with the Philadelphia Eagles this year and now has an opportunity to break a single season rushing record against his former team. That's the type of drama that the NBA is missing. But at the same time, the Philadelphia Eagles aren't a shoo-in to make it to the Super Bowl because their wide receiver and quarterback might not be getting along, primarily because of the lack of volume that the wide receiver AJ Brown is used to getting, but is taken away as a result of the emergence of Saquon Barkley. And that might not even be 100% true, but it's just very entertaining and captivating to watch. Every aspect of the NFL has nailed this. It's not too melodramatic, but it's just enough to keep us entertained. All of the games matter because there's only 18 games in a season. The storylines are riveting, and the players are players that you want to cheer for. On top of that, a lot of these players don't rest or take games off, primarily because most of them don't come from advantageous financial backgrounds, which is what it used to be for NBA players. So as a result of being grateful for the game that they play and the opportunity to build generational wealth, most of them don't take games off unless if it's absolutely necessary. You see players visibly upset when they have to sit down and begging their head coach to go back in. Whereas meanwhile, Joel Embiid says stuff like he doesn't want to play in back-to-backs anymore. Paul George is clickbaiting the fact that his team is having trouble to start the season on his podcast. He has more podcast episodes than games played. He just secured a 5-year, $200 million plus contract and has been playing the worst basketball of his career despite being placed in the best situation to win a championship for his career. So as a result, fans don't like the players as much anymore. And all of these reasons are why the NFL is currently doing better than the NBA. And that's before we actually get to the product of the NBA, what you see when you tune into a game. The NBA currently has the most talent we've ever seen, and this new era of basketball is full of otherworldly players putting up numbers that we've never seen before. But there's a huge problem. Nobody's paying attention. NBA ratings are decreasing year by year, and the overall product has gotten so much worse. Probably the biggest reason for this is the revolution of the three-point shot. Three-pointers have become the primary form of scoring in the NBA, and as much as it sucks to say, it has completely killed the quality of the game we all love. Ratings are down 48% since 2012 and are down 28% on ESPN this year alone. And is that really shocking? Nobody wants to watch a game with 90 combined three-point attempts. At that point, it's literally just a game where two teams just run down the court and do the exact same thing each time they touch the ball. That's not entertaining, and it's especially not entertaining when the majority of those three-point attempts are terrible shots that result in bricks. Just take a look at this game, for example. On December 13th, the Chicago Bulls and Charlotte Hornets played in a game. The game in general was a complete disaster, resulting in 75 missed threes between the two teams, which is the most in a game in NBA history. In 48 minutes, that's 1.5 missed threes per minute. I mean, over 50% of the shots taken in the game were from beyond the arc, and that just doesn't result in a good product. On top of that monstrosity of a game, the NBA Cup had been going on, which to some fans is a cool addition to the game, but to others is just a distraction that Adam Silver has brought in to make fans ignore the decline of the league.
Ratings are down 48% in the last 12 years, and Adam Silver's solution is let's make the courts brighter. But the All-Star game is now embarrassing, and I think load management is a shame on the league. It's a really bad look for a family of four to go to a game and Giannis doesn't play. Go ask the Democrats. Be warned, once you detach from regular people in America, you will pay a price.
The NBA Cup was created to try and give fans something intense and entertaining in the midst of the season, which is when the ratings are at their lowest. But this new three-point barrage has made certain games completely unwatchable. You'd think that these games would draw high interest because they're high-stakes games between the hottest teams in the NBA, right? Wrong. Tickets were being priced like it was a normal regular season game, and perhaps even cheaper. The semifinal matchup of the tournament between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Atlanta Hawks had a price of $29 just to get into the arena. And it wasn't like this was some normal home game for either team. This game was played at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Vegas literally doesn't have an NBA team, but the local fans still didn't want to go see two of the most fun teams in the East play basketball. But hey, maybe they made the right decision because look at how this game was being played. See what I mean when I say that today's game is just three-pointers being chucked up back to back to back? Take a look at this chart. The mid-range game has been completely drowned out by the three-pointer, and this really makes me think that the analytics are becoming too important when it comes to running a fluid offense. But unfortunately, that's what the league has come to, and realistically, you could blame one man for this: Steph Curry.
Steph Curry has done that for the game of basketball in terms of the jump shot, the three-point shot, the space that it creates for the opportunities that it creates for the players around him, how it scares the living hell out of defenses and what have you.
About a decade ago, scoring in the NBA really came down to who was the best within the three-point line, with guys like LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Tim Duncan dominating while being below average three-point shooters. Then, an emerging star named Steph Curry came and completely changed the game, showing how valuable the three-point shot really is and just how good he was at making those shots. Steph would go on to break every three-point record imaginable and win 4 championships in the process, next to another one of the top 5 greatest shooters in the history of the game. Teams didn't know how to stop this onslaught, so everyone in the league thought,
Hey, let's just try shooting a bunch of threes. It's working out for the Warriors.
and that's exactly what happened. From 2013, which is when Steph really broke out as a starter in Golden State, to this year, the league average in three-pointers attempted per game has jumped from an even 20 to a ridiculous 37.5. It took over 30 years for the league to attempt 20 threes per game since the three-point line was introduced. And at this rate, it's only going to take about 15 to go up another 20 per game. Young players grew up watching and admiring Steph Curry and have completely implemented his game into theirs. And because of that, and because of how drastically the game has shifted, I don't think we'll ever see an NBA player incapable of making a three-pointer ever again. Because if you can't make a three, you're automatically at a disadvantage in today's game.
I have felt this way for a while, and I don't think I'm alone, that the NBA is out of balance. You're in a better spot when there's more of a balance, where the three-point shot is part of the game, not the entire game. And
even players who have been in the league for years have switched their game to match the new pace of play, and no player demonstrates this better than Brook Lopez. Back in the day, Brook Lopez was purely a back-to-the-basket center who couldn't make a three to save his life. And it's not like he was bad either. He made an all-star team and literally became the all-time leading scorer in Brooklyn Nets history without making any threes. But a couple of years after Steph Curry's 2 MVP seasons, and Brook Lopez decided to completely switch up his game, becoming a pick-and-pop spot-up big and ultimately becoming one of the best shooting big men in the league. This style of play adapted so well to this new era of basketball that he even played a massive part in the Milwaukee Bucks championship run in 2021. Lopez is a rare example of a player who successfully adapted to the game. But nowadays, entire teams are adopting this style of play, and this is arguably the biggest reason that the ratings have taken such a hit. The prime example of this is none other than the reigning NBA champion Boston Celtics.
Boston red hot from behind the three-point arc, going 22 for 41, which included 33 points from Jason Tatum.
The Boston Celtics have become the epitome of the three-point barrage. This season, the Celtics are averaging an absurd 51.1 three-point shots attempted per game, which is by far the most in NBA history. For context, the 73-win 2016 Golden State Warriors, the same year that Steph Curry made the most threes ever in a single season, only attempted 31.6 threes per game. The Celtics are literally attempting 19.5 more threes per game than the greatest three-point shooting team of all time, and it's making their games completely unwatchable, especially when their games end up like this. The numbers show it too. The 2024 playoffs, which were dominated and ultimately won by the Celtics, had an 11% ratings decrease from 2023, on top of a 12% viewership decrease. The Celtics weren't fully responsible for this, of course, but the numbers go to show that the NBA is producing a less enjoyable product. However, the decrease in viewership is a completely separate problem. Yes, this style of play is causing less and less fans to watch basketball, but Adam Silver and the NBA have also made it nearly impossible to watch their game. The NBA and League Pass have made it impossibly hard to watch your favorite team, which shouldn't be the case considering the decently low price tag. Well, it is, mostly because the majority of fans are supporters of their hometown teams, and League Pass loves to black out as many games as possible, meaning that you would need a subscription to your local sports channel in order to watch your favorite team, which by the way is not cheap. On top of that, the scheduling is an absolute mess. The majority of fans have a cable provider, but the problem with that is that the NBA doesn't have the proper realization to put their high demand games on live TV, instead hiding them on League Pass or behind an expensive paywall for local fans. This complete blunder from the NBA has driven more and more fans towards illegal streaming, which of course has a negative effect on their overall ratings and viewership. So why won't they find a way to fix this problem? At this rate, every NBA fan will be watching on an illegal streaming website, and the product just won't be profitable anymore. On top of that, nobody wants to pay big bucks to watch the depleting product that I was talking about earlier. So Adam Silver has a huge problem. The pace at which the NBA is going is a complete negative not only for the league, but for the sport of basketball as a whole. Less eyes are going to be on the sport, less players are going to grow up in love with the sport, which will ultimately mean that the league will get less and less talented and more three-point oriented, since the kids that are growing up loving the game don't know an NBA that didn't revolve around three-point shooting. Realistically, I don't know if we'll ever see the NBA at its peak ever again. With the way things are going, it doesn't look like there's a real solution to this major problem, and it will only get worse. The three-point shot is ruining the NBA, the stars aren't anyone that fans want to get behind, the players are entitled, there's no exciting storylines, the NBA recently made it more difficult to trade for players, the players love to flop, they just like to chuck up threes, and probably the worst part of all is even if you could get over all of this, it's impossible to watch your favorite team. I won't be surprised if the NHL eventually hops over the NBA, and I really hope I'm wrong. But for now, it really looks like this could be the end of the NBA. Let me know in the comment section down below if you agree with me and how you think the NBA could be fixed, if they could be fixed. Aside from that, I made a video on what the NBA looked like 10 years ago. If you want to get a comparison to why it was so exciting 10 years ago, I'll leave a link to that in the end screen. I'll meet you guys there. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.